Okay, I think most of the time IDs are misunderstood.
Tough question.
Damn difficult, yeah. But as long as the house has not been handed over to you, I have not finished my job.
Being versed as an interior designer makes you better in terms of running a project. Shoddy workmanship is a scam. Overpriced is a scam. Not answering phone calls is a scam.
The quotation is not transparent.
If I run an interior design business, I may be a designer, but that doesn't make me a qualified businessman.
But whether or not this can be feasible when it comes to the actual site measurement, translated into renovation, is another topic on its own.
I mean, after all, renovation is a series of events coming together. It is not very complex, right? Hi all, welcome to this episode of the SIXiDER Show, where we ask tough questions to the designers, merchants and renovators about the interior design industry in Singapore. I'm your host, Astley, a.k.a. the Design Nerd. And joining me here today, we have Cayden Lee. Cayden Lee is a senior interior designer from Saege. Now, Saege is spelled differently with an E after an A, as in an Saege. Quite a unique name. Cayden, would you like to introduce yourself and speak a little bit more about your company as well as your experience in this industry?
First off, thank you very much for having me. I've been an interior designer in the industry for about 5 years now. My company, Saege, mainly provides interior design services and renovation fulfillment. As to why the name Saege has an E inside, I guess when we were coming up with the name for the company, we wanted to think of a strong color that homeowners can remember and draw reference from. And as an interior designer, based on past experiences, most of the time when homeowners first come to an ID, is usually the wife that looks for an interior designer, right? So I think a color theme that tend to appeal more to the female audience is like something from the pastel colors. Yeah, so I wanted to pick something from the pastel color selection, which is why we went with sage green lah. And it'll be quite boring if we just spell the company with Saege. Yeah, so we thought we add an E inside without changing the pronunciation still being the same, and it could be more unique lah and easier to remember.
And something else that I realized when I went through your Facebook, right? And interestingly, I feel like your pictures of your portfolio has a layer of this sage green. I don't know whether this is an intentional thing or somehow rather subconsciously, I feel that, you know, I do see traces of that olive greeny color inside. Is this an intentional thing?
I wouldn't say it's intentional lah, but we do have someone to make sure like there's a proper preset that's adhered to every image lah, and every marketing material that we push out follows our brand guidelines. And I think nowadays in the marketing context, it's becoming increasingly more of a trend to see there's a primary color and bold subtext is being used in images instead of just typically posting up renovation interior image lah.
Now, we asked you here today because we wanted to have a conversation with you on specifically about homeowners' frustration dealing with renovation scams and whether you have a perspective on this.
In terms of renovation scams,
Now, I know scam means a very big thing lah, but you know, a homeowner's perspective is generic. They will see that shoddy workmanship is a scam, overpriced is a scam, not answering phone calls is a scam. Maybe we define it by the people who take the money and then they ghost, or even if they don't ghost, they just take very long to reply, especially after collecting and signing the contract, collecting money and signing the contract.
I think usually for me, when homeowners first come to me, they definitely have multiple concerns. Some of it could be drawn from past renovation experiences, or maybe just stories that they hear from friends and family. And now these days, online in our industry, we also both know that a lot of times, like, it's very easy to see people sharing bad experiences with renovation companies, and this tends to strike fear and concern in homeowners that's looking to find an ID to fulfill their renovation, which makes it harder for us to do our job lah.
I've been in the industry for 30 over years. The day that I joined the industry till now, renovation seems to be top 10. It's always there one.
Yeah.
Why do you think that modern technology catching up, the communication tools like we have like WhatsApp, emails, even people using the phone to take pictures of the job site. Why do you think with all these added communication tools and transparency, especially social media where people can go and say this company is not good, so and so forth, Google reviews, why do you think that there are still these scammers or so-called bad reputation to the industry?
I think because even if there's an introduction of all this technology, at the end of the day, it's still up to the individual person that is responsible to running the project lah. At the end of the day, renovation fulfillment involves a specific individual managing multiple groups of people, and because of this human nature of the job, if that person tends to fall short, the end result might not be delivered as promised lah. And that's why there's always these multiple occurrences of people having these bad experiences lah. So I think at the very end, it still voices down to someone has to manage people. There is room for these problems lah.
So would you think that this is a skill set issue? After all, they say that the industry has a very low barrier to entry. I mean, after all, renovation is a series of events coming together. It is not very complex, right? We have a contract. The contract says 1 to 10 items. It's just fulfillment of these 10 items.
Correct.
Why then is it that difficult to manage the job site?
Okay, from experience, as an ID company, usually the contractors that we tend to work with tend to have a good track record, and through long-standing relationship of fulfilling good workmanship. But sometimes, maybe one of their workers having a bad day or just simply carelessness, and this can lead to mistakes being made. Never do their due diligence to ensure that the proper standard is being adhered to, and something like this can result in poor workmanship or bad renovation end result. Yeah. So I think what's important is not that whether or not we can prevent these things from happening or not. I think what's important is that there are proper procedures and SOPs set in place by these ID companies, right, to ultimately deliver a project back to the homeowner, right, with the proper workmanship and high quality that is adhered to lah.
Let's say you're running 10 projects in a month. A company is running 10 to 20 projects in a month. There will be 1 or 2 such cases. And when it happens, it happens. But it's usually when this kind of thing happens and then it gets blown out of proportion, people go take to social media and then they make noise. But half the time when like 80% of the projects that are job well done, nobody ever talks about it. And then the bad news will travel far and wide. The market right now has this perception that the industry has a lot of people who are not versed. They're not versed designers. Therefore, they are not qualified to run a project. I think it's 2 different school of thought altogether. A trained designer might not be trained to run a job site. Just like if I run an interior design business, I may be a designer, but that doesn't make me a qualified businessman. Running a business and running interior design are 2 different verticals. So my thoughts on this is that I don't necessarily think that being versed as an interior designer makes you better in terms of running a project. But conversely, of course, being skilled as an interior designer sets you up as having the fundamentals. And when it comes to exploring design, the trained interior designer will definitely be able to offer more in terms of concepts and all that. But when it's going into the job site and running the job site, it's basically, like I said, coordination, communication. And then sometimes, you have to speak Hokkien, Malay, Cantonese, God knows, right? And all this you don't learn in school.
Yep.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you. I think the first thing that homeowners understand is that in this entire renovation industry, right, in order to fulfill a renovation project, there are two main components. One is the interior design phase, which is usually what happens at the start, the conceptualization, the proposal, the layout planning, and then there's also the next big component, which is actually fulfilling the renovation work. Yeah. Sometimes individual trained in the academically in interior design might be able to come up with a concept that is able to wow the homeowner, something that resonates with them, a layout that is unique compared to, what other IDs are providing to homeowners. But whether or not this can be feasible when it comes to the actual site measurement, translated into renovation, is another topic on its own.
Yeah, so I have this question here. One of the homeowners actually wrote to us and asked us and say, why do contractors always cut corners? And of course, they associate cutting corners to scamming lah. I think the context of it is that cutting corners, to me, obviously feels like it's a very serious accusation. It's saying that this is what we propose, but then when I deliver less. Say a change of material or change of design. But more often than other, I know from my experience as an interior designer, is that they mistake bad workmanship as cutting corners. Now, in your 5 years as an interior designer, do you have that kind of experience before?
Definitely. But I think one thing that I always tell my homeowners is this. Throughout the entire course of the renovation, you might see that there are certain workmanship quality or standards are not met. But as long as the house has not been handed over to you, I have not finished my job. It's very common practice in the industry that upon handover, there's this thing called a defect check, right? So usually during this defect check, the homeowner and the ID identifies any defects that has occurred throughout the course of the renovation. And then after the defect check, is up to the ID to rectify these defects. Homeowners need to understand that renovation happen in phases, right? Different groups of contractors come in at different point of time. The hacker, the tiler, the electrician, then the carpenter, etc. Yeah. So what that means is that, for example, when the carpenter has started taking measurement, the tiler has already finished their works. Right. This leaves rooms, right, for the ID, right, to actually do their own spot check at different phases on the renovation, such so that towards the end of the renovation, even before the defect check, right, there is room for the ID to rectify these defects. Yeah, this is a common practice that I do lah. So after every group of contractor has completed their work, I personally will go down to the site and do my own check. And if I deem that any areas of the works is not up to standard, I'll get the contractor to rectify it while another group of contractors is continuing to do their work. And I realized that this results in less defects that's being identified towards the end of the renovation during the defect check. Yeah.
Maybe there is a material shortage. You are at that phase whereby you are going to propose something else, and this results in a change in pricing, maybe higher. Do you think this is where the homeowners will think that, oh, you're trying to cut corners here, or you're trying to charge me something because you lose money somewhere and now you're trying to make money from me? I don't know. Do you think there's some form of bias?
Okay, I think most of the time IDs are misunderstood.
So you agree there's a bias lah?
I would agree that there's a bias to a certain extent lah.
Okay.
It could be because they don't understand how the industry works, or like how an ID even makes money, right? Across the industry, it's pretty common that as ID firm, we engage subcontractors, right? And these subcontractors gives us a price for the specific works involved. And we as the ID, being the people that connects the subcontractors to the homeowners to fulfill the renovation work, we definitely have a layer of markup lah. So that is where we as ID earn our keep. I think most of the time when homeowners feel like they are being so-called cheated out of their money is when certain costs are not accounted for. Yeah, and I believe that the reason why that can or cannot happen, an experienced ID will be able to identify, in order to fulfill a specific renovation work based on the type of property, the type of house, what are some of the costs that needs to be accounted for. And often at times when these costs are not accounted for, this is what homeowners always call hidden costs lah. Right? I'm sure you hear this term a lot in the industry. Example of such a hidden cost could potentially be this thing where we call make good, like plastering smooth. When we do a home renovation, if there's demolition works involved, when we demolish a wall or we remove a door frame, the wall is definitely not going to be perfect lah, right? It's not going to be up to standard. So there is some workmanship required from the tiler or for the painter to make good or patch up that wall. And if these costs are not identified, right, all these little things, right, will add up to quite a large sum, right, which will ultimately be charged back to the homeowner. And at that point of time, maybe that's when the homeowner start to feel like, there are all these hidden costs and they are being cheated lah, because they were not told or made aware of all these costs at the start.
But bro, I think we can't win one. No. Here's the other dilemma. Okay, based on experience, right, and then you kind of blind spot everything and you put it in your contract. Protection, X sum. Plastering, make good, X sum. And you kind of think of all this and you put it in your contract. Suddenly your contract becomes at least 2 or 3 page more. When it's so competitive and then there's so many other IDs trying to get a job, right? Maybe some IDs who are less experienced, and this is again with a caveat that they really are not experienced, so they miss out these items, they put it inside. Suddenly your price will look super expensive, whereas theirs will look really attractive. Now we're not even talking about those people who really consciously say they'll come back later and do a variation order. And all these things must include one. It's just that they didn't put it in the front. Now, we just talk about that. You are already out of the competition. People say, why are you more 5,000, 10,000? And when we're talking about 30,000 project, 5,000 extra is a lot of money.
Correct.
Yeah. And my take on this is that it's almost like you cannot win one. Right? If you're truthful, you may not get the job. If you kind of like camo a little bit, you're seen as someone who want to scam. And I think you can take this opportunity to kind of share with the audience really what they should look for in an interior designer. Really, how do you distinguish when someone puts these items in and versus someone who don't put the item in?
I think an ID that knows what he's doing, when you look at their quotation, right, is very detailed. In quotation, usually you tend to see things like one lot per foot run, per square feet, right? When a lot of things get lumped together, right, I feel that's when the quotation is not transparent. I think an ID that has considered every aspect of the renovation, every component that is needed to fulfill this renovation, every cost involved, they will be able to very accurately detail in their quotation these things. And when they are presenting the quotation to you, I believe they'll also make it known to you that there is this additional cost involved after demolition to plaster this area in order to fulfill this, in order to fulfill that. Yeah, so I think from this you will be able to tell apart the IDs that they are quoting from experience and they are not just simply like marking up just for their own gain. Yeah.
I think for the homeowners who are actually doing the research, and especially when you see a clear distinction between, let's say, party A and party B, and party B has all these things missed out or not indicated inside, do ask them. Definitely ask the IDs, what about these things that we saw from another quote? And if the answer is included, I think that's a very big red flag.
Yeah.
It definitely says something wrong because anything that's not in the contract, it gives them the ability to come back with another contract.
Correct.
To say that this is not inside. And at that point, you have no options really. You definitely have to pay and move on or cancel contract and move on to another designer. And then you'll probably lose money and time. Yeah. But is there like a sweet spot to this? I have another customer last time, right, that when we charge for protection, and I'm not sure about now, but last time it's corrugated cardboard. Right? Put 抓灰. And then 抓灰 at that time, last time, like, we will charge like $200, $250. I think today cannot get this kind of price already. The customer outright asked me, why do I have to pay for this? I say it's basically to protect your flooring. He said, if you take care of my job site, you wouldn't have to put this flooring on. And then he said, why do I have to pay for this insurance? If anything, you should be paying for this insurance to take care of my job site. As an idea, I listened to that, I was a little bit offended. But then as a homeowner, right, I do feel that he does have a point. That if I were to undertake a job site, it's as simple as my workers cannot smoke at the job site. I take care of the job site like it's my home. And likewise, right, if I have that same mentality, then therefore when we do the job site, right, the job site should be protected. And this cost should be I bond or the customer bond. Do you have a take on this?
Well, I guess it's subjected. Now these days there's a lot of new projects, right? Be it BTO or new condo launches. And oftentimes when homeowners come to me with these property types, when I'm going in to fulfill a renovation for a component, there's already existing flooring or furnishings and fittings that's already in the site. Yeah. So in these cases, the proper protection definitely has to be laid. And homeowners must understand that this cost that we are charging to lay the protection is not purely for us to earn, like in pure profits. The person that lays the protection is actually the hacker, right? And the hacker charges a labor cost to lay the protection. The protection pad itself, whether it's the corrugated paper or now these days the waterproof white protection pad, this is all material that has to be purchased and borne by the company. I believe is subjected to whether it's a new project or there's something existing that needs to be protected. Yeah. So that there's no discrepancy from when upon handover, when there's a damage, whether it's done by my guys or it was already an existing defect.
I have a perfect answer for you that you can use and go and tell your customers. Right. No matter what, you're paying for it. Right. It's either I make it upfront and tell you that here you're paying for it, or it's marked up somewhere. Right. Now McDonald's give you free ketchup, free chili sauce. You don't tell me all the ketchup and tomato sauce that comes with, it's free. I mean, it's free for you to take, but it comes with a price to McDonald's. The reality is protection is part and parcel. It's something that's going to be there one. And the reality is you cannot control everyone because there are so many people coming in and out of the job site. Sometimes it's not even your guys, right? There'll probably be delivery person. And sometimes in the haste of things they want to deliver something, they will damage something. It happens all the time. Yesterday an oven came to my house. We changed oven. The fella knocked into one side of the tile. There's a small chip now. And I finished a reno long ago, but now I have a little chip tile. I can't even get a replacement, right? So things happen. So if you can buy insurance, buy law, do buy, yes. Now, if we're talking about clauses in a contract, would you ever or will Sage ever warrant against shoddy workmanship? Meaning, put it inside 白纸黑字 say Sage warrant that we will not deliver shoddy workmanship.
I don't believe there's a ID company that's able to do that. If we want to talk about clauses to protect homeowners from poor workmanship, the list will probably be endless. I think what's important is not that there's a black and white, that there will never be occurrence of shoddy workmanship. I think what's important is that there is as a basic guideline there is a warranty that is covered by the works that is done during my renovation Things regarding to waterproofing or like electrical works, right? Usually after the renovation is done, when the homeowner move in, it doesn't take 2 years or years for the problems to suffice. Usually it occurs like after a few months. And when we talk about waterproofing specifically, right, it's done before the tile is laid. What that means is that after the tiling has been done, if there's an issue with the waterproofing, the entire area of tiles has to be hacked and the waterproofing has to be redone. So this is definitely a nightmare scenario for homeowners But I think the main thing is that the cost involved to fix this issue is covered by the ID firm
When it comes to the functioning of the product, waterproofing is very straightforward. You either performs or don't perform.
Correct.
Right. When it comes to shoddy workmanship, sometimes it can be a little bit abstract. For example, carpentry work. And we're talking about, the laminate should be laid a certain way. They say that the grain should go this way and then go that way. Or tiling on the floor, the tile should be laid a certain way. There should be a line. And when those things don't meet, it's considered shoddy. Maybe it falls onto the homeowner's understanding, or maybe it's also about the designer articulating to the homeowner whether, this is what to be expected. And do you guys practice a detailed drawing or, drawings that specifically spell out how certain things will run, like for example, wood grain?
I think quite commonly, our company definitely will do up minimally a carpentry drawing So before the carpentry measurement, there's usually a carpentry discussion that is done with the homeowner, and there will be all these 2D elevation just to help the homeowner to visualize how the carpentry will look like. And these discussions, we also iron out what are internal configurations of the wardrobes or all their carpentry. And the ID, we as the IDs will proceed to draft out these 2D diagrams and we'll get the homeowner to confirm and sign on them before we actually proceed with the carpentry works. Yeah.
So that helps. I think to a certain extent, I think the extreme example is versus not having that, right, is kitchen, and then you have an L corner, and then drawer left, drawer right, then drawer at extreme corner, door cannot open. It just don't make sense. And sometimes people, when they see 3D drawing, right, nothing is functioning. Right? It's just an aesthetic. And strange enough, and it's a phenomenon I realized that, especially when we talk about residential projects, is that homeowners tend to be very emotional when they look at 3D. But then when you go into detailed drawing, right, suddenly it becomes very logical because there's no colors, no decoration,
cannot visualize.
Visual, right? Then that's where there bare bones, this is what you're going to get. And then it falls on the designer to explain. Correct. I do think that that's important. What about lighting? Is this something that Sage as a whole cares about?
Wow, lighting I think has blown up in the industry. We start to see a lot of lighting shop offering services that interior designers used to be able to fulfill, right? Now these days, obviously there's a big name in the industry like Sol Luminaire. Homeowners go down to the shop and their sales representatives are able to take their homeowner's floor plan and come up with a detailed lighting plan for them. Yeah, 2 years ago, like this wasn't a thing yet lah. This used to be part of my job, right, as an interior designer, to come up with the lighting plan. Yeah, I don't believe it's a practice across everyone in my company, but for me, I enjoy. I believe that lighting it plays a huge part in the interior design lah. So I enjoy like coming up with a plan, a lighting plan, to see how it can help to place some emphasis on specific areas that I want to feature. Yeah.
There's already I mean, the commercial sense, right? Like hotels, restaurant, and all that. There's a lot of emphasis on lighting, sound, acoustic, and all that, because it addresses not just the visual. It addresses the five senses. So you go to a hotel and then you smell. First thing it'll greet you is the smell. Then of course, sights and sounds and all that. I think designers these days work together with suppliers to kind of bring this together, so that going into even your home is seen as an experience, and it's something made more accessible. It's interesting you talk about a lighting firm. For me, I really appreciate some of these firms like Huga. Now, Huga sells bed linen, sells fake plants and all that, right? But they also sell scents. And then I think that somehow or other the scent kind of complete the experience when you visit someone's home. And I think that's kind of a new approach. And if you combine everything together, especially with lighting, right, and smart lighting, where you can kind of like one button press everything, and with the right smell, you're straight away transported into a different world. Do you ever had projects like that where the client really emphasize on all these things as well?
Well, yeah, I definitely have clients that has asked me if I'm able to fulfill the aspect of soft furnishing as well, because I believe all these things fall under the category of soft furnishing. Sometimes homeowners they see a lot of nice homes online, right? But they don't realize that in order to achieve that end result, right, a lot of times, right, is accompanied by very subtle soft furnishings. Yeah. So I do have homeowners that have ever approached me that if I can fulfill that aspect. It's quite common that ID firms they form a separate team of individuals to fulfill this service of helping homeowners to source for all this soft furnishing. Yeah.
I keep hearing you use the word fulfillment. You don't use the word renovation. Fulfillment is like your replacement work for renovation. This is it's a very conscious thing that you're saying.
Yeah, I guess I don't realize it lah, but I get renovation sounds so like no standard, like renovation. Like I'm an interior designer, so I do renovation fulfillment.
Okay. Sounds like data analysis. Okay, I'm going to ask you my two last questions. Okay, what's your top advice for homeowners to ensure high quality fulfillment work, interior design and renovation fulfillment work? Like, what can they tell the designer, right? What should they say? I want it cheap, I want it good, I want it beautiful, best price. Or they should say, no, hey, the sky's the limit, do whatever you want.
Wow, I don't think it voices down to what the homeowners tells the ID. Yeah, I believe it's more of the initiative from the ID itself. Homeowners tend to make their decision on what kind of good workmanship they'll get based off the ID firms they visit, maybe by analyzing the workmanship at their showroom, or maybe they request for the ID to bring them to one of the existing job site. And then most of the time, I believe that's how homeowners tell apart which are the ID firms with so-called good workmanship and poor workmanship. But at the end of the day, actually there's no guarantee, right? It doesn't mean that the showroom might have good workmanship quality, but then when it comes down to your renovation, the same carpenter, the same tiler that was able to do that good workmanship will be ultimately doing your renovation, right? There's no way to tell. Or it could be that it could be the same tiler, it could be the same carpenter, but it happened to be a new worker who is learning on the job that is doing your renovation site. So I don't think that should be the way in which homeowners should discern whether they'll be able to get good workmanship or poor workmanship at the end of their renovation. I think the most important thing, and it still voices down to finding a responsible ID, because I believe a responsible ID will not be able to deliver shoddy workmanship, right? I mentioned earlier that at the end of every renovation, there's always a defect check. I believe that a responsible ID even before the defect check, should be able to identify what are some areas that are not acceptable, some areas that standards are not adhered to, and they should be able to instruct and make sure that these things are rectified even before leading up to that defect check. Then I guess the main question is
how do you
identify what is a responsible ID?
Yes.
Yeah. I guess we all know what it takes to be someone who is responsible, right?
Yeah.
And in the quest for sourcing for ID for a renovation, you definitely talk to many different people. There are initial meetings being set, proposals and quotation deadlines that's been promised to you. I think through these little interactions, it's not so difficult to tell apart who are the more responsible ones. And I think from there, if you can go with your gut and make a decision. I don't believe that you end up with a renovation that will result in a shoddy workmanship if you choose a responsible ID. Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you right, it's basically do your homework. The homeowner has got to meet the IDs, have discussions. It is your time to not just see a quotation, but to assess the character of the
Correct.
individual. Maybe even set meetings and see whether the person turned up on time or not, right? Or consistently being on time, consistently doing above and beyond, being empathetic enough to show initiative by blind spotting, thinking about the occupants in the house and all that. To the homeowners, these are your due diligence. This is how you assess. And then to the ID, we're all trying to get a job. And it's not just a job, it's someone's home.
Correct.
Right? It's almost like it's a demand, like to an interior designer, you have to have the empathy. Because if you cannot put yourself in that person's position, your design would be
Not relevant.
Yeah, it's not real. It's not for real people to use, right? Yeah, great. Okay, so we have a tradition here. It's a new tradition, in fact, since the show is very new. And that tradition is basically a designer or a merchant previously had actually supplied us with a question, and we're going to shoot you this question. It could be related to ID, renovation, or it could not be, So are you ready?
Sure.
Okay, so this question is this: if you have $100 per month spare to spend, and it's on some form of investment, how would you spend it? If you ask me, I'll spend it on food. Make myself happy.
Well, I don't know why, very randomly, something that I thought of is that at the end of my renovation, I usually give my homeowners a housewarming gift. And usually that housewarming gift can cost up to $200. Yeah. If I have $100 every month, then straight away, if I got 1 or 2 projects every month, I'll save half of the money from this housewarming gift. But I think the main thing that why I would consider it an investment that I realized after working as an ID for so long. In a throughout the entire renovation phase, right, multiple things can go wrong, but at the end of the day, I think what's most important is that, I realize I go a bit off topic, right?
No, it's okay.
I can come up with the best initial concept, I can have the best price, the renovation can go well, it can go bad, but I realized that the most important thing is at the end of the renovation, what's most important to the homeowner is not whether there are defects or whether there's issues that occur during the renovation, but how I as an ID deal with those things. Yeah, and because of that, I believe that is what has helped me to successfully get consistent referral from homeowners. And at the end of that renovation, I think what sweetens it is really that housewarming gift, something that I feel like I can take out of my own profits that I've drawn from your project and give to you, something that can contribute to your space. I think something that I like to give is usually is like a plant, because I feel that there's a soft furnishing that can contribute to the interior decor, and it can also liven up the place . Yeah. So I guess that's what I'll probably use my $100 every month for . I see it as an investment for me. Yeah.
It's like a happy ending. Some kind of closure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also like plants a lot, if you haven't realized.
Yeah, I can tell.
Okay, so with that, we've come to the end, and we'll need you to, pen down a question for the next
Sure.
ID or merchant and sabo them, right? And hopefully they answer as well as you. You basically watch Cayden Lee and me, Astley, a.k.a. the designer, in the SIXiDER Show. Join us next time as we talk about the hot topics related to the ID industry. Bye. Why you don't wave like that?